And confidence is where a lot of the speed comes in. Oh my goodness! Saves it! How in the world?
It comes from very far back, but was able to get the car slowed up.
And he knew. Look at how early he positioned himself. I would not have been that confident. That is amazing. What a save from Warren. And there, yeah, that is brave stuff. Rent doesn't usually offer up a chance to pass. And then Warren, who was eager to try and retake it, looked like I thought he was going to get a great run on the front stretch, just goosed it too hard.
Oh, and their teammates apparently, from what I've been told. So yeah, rule number 1: never hit your teammate. And let's take a look at what happened. So that's Karjalainen going around the outside of the S's, getting the car to roll through. He's got the inside for the corner, a little bit of a slide. And I don't know about you, DJ, but that's gonna be a racing incident, I think, 50-50.
Olton is a very, very narrow circuit. You're not able to get as clear as you think, as we got a little bit of side-by-side talk about aggressive moves from a Jordan Svetnov.
Jordan Svetnov's not done, though, here, because Stephen Orr was trying to get back underneath.
We're still side by side with Sanchez, though. He's given it another go. Did he learn lessons from last time? This time he cuts back a lot earlier. Will that help him out as he goes for the back and forth once again? But this time, Walker is the one who has gotten wise from that one. He covers off, clear around the outside, though. Holy cow! Sanchez learned his own little trick, and that's the one that gets him the spot.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world.
I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike.
My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect.
How's it going, Sally? Yeah, I'm all right, Mick. How's it going?
Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings, where they go into the top and the spider's in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me.
Freezing. And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
This is Mod Country. For so many years, Weed Sport Speedway has seen modified racing at the heart of its operations. This 3/8-mile racetrack has seen plenty of history throughout its time. And now, today, the Major Series will get to add its chapter to its history. This is Modified Mayhem, live on the Global SimRacing channel. Hello everyone and welcome to Race 10 of the European Region's Pro Split season. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside the booth today is Jake Sperry alongside Christian Schauner. Behind the scenes is our director Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. Today takes us to Weed Sport Speedway. Let's take a look at our Gsrc track guide to learn more about today's venue.
Welcome to the Cuyuga County Fairgrounds and home to Weed Sport Speedway. Located only about 60 miles from another famous New York track, Watkins Glen, and a stone's throw away from Lake Ontario, this place puts on a lot of action in the dirt variety. This 3/8 of a mile clay surface oval is unique because of its shape. The front straightaway is straight, but outside of that, this place is totally asymmetrical. Heading into one, many guys will make a sharp apex, swing out, and then apex again for turn two. It's not the sweeping corner that it looks like from a track map. The exit into two leads onto the curved backstretch that gives the speedway a D shape. But the backstretch blends into turn three, and it's not nearly as sharp as an entry as one. But you head off into four and yet another apex that'll set you up for the front stretch. A lot of driving happens at 3/8 of a mile. In 1975, Weed Sport's then owner founded what has become the Dirt Car Series, and Weed Sport was its home. So it is more known for stock car and modified racing, but those sprints appear here as well. In fact, both USAC and World of Outlaws sprint cars make regular trips, but those big block modifieds are king here. But it is a weekly track, so you have your usual complement of local modified, stocks, and other classes. Don't let the only 11 degrees of banking in the sharper corners here fool you. This place is fast and action-packed. Now it's time to see who will rise above at Weed Sport here on Gsrc.
That was a look at our Gsrc track guide for Weed Sport. Now, Christian, today takes us dirt racing for the Major Series this season. Your thoughts on this racetrack and what's expected to be an intriguing event, to say the very least, for Modified Mayhem?
Yeah, this is actually one of, if not my favorite dirt tracks that we have here on iRacing. Very, very different 1, 2, 3, and 4 here. 11 degrees of banking in the turns. It is actually quite fast at 0.375 mile track, but it is very, very tricky. It's just, you know, it's got a lot of character to it. The way that you run both ends of the course is actually pretty different. They're almost inverted on each other, and they just work really, really well with these mods. It's practically a track and a car built for each other.
There's going to be a lot to talk about, to say the very least, on how these drivers will fare out as the night progresses. Let's take a look at how the championship has progressed so far this season in turn. Starting off with the pro standings, where Sean Campbell has seen his lead dwindle in those standings. Dallas Pataska has chipped away at that gap from what was more than 200 points at one mark down to just 41 entering today. Jamie Conway's 165 points back today, followed by Ross Banfield and Thomas Cope, the top 5. David H. Baker, of note, is the rounding out of the top 10, 360 points back behind Miguel Freitas, is 313 back. With that, let's take a look at the sportsman standings with Brian Boomstra, who leads the way in those standings with 5 victories on the trot and 9 starts. 113 points back from his Gary Batten. Then it's Sam Swallow, Daniel Holmer, and Alexander Wegert, who are amongst your top 5 in sportsmen. 286 points separate the top 10 entering this evening's action, with Hakan Shot, who is 286 back. With that, let's take a look at Legends, where David H. Baker is the only full-time driver this season, meaning he's got a 584-point advantage to a Legends title in the pro class. Mario Schroer is 900 points back entering today. In Legend Sport, Hakan Shot has a 24-point advantage over Jan Brony. Then Miguel Hagstrom is 59 points back, 157 back is Gary Thomas. Then Andy Banfield rounds out the top 5, 238 back. Claude Belval is 6, 252 points back as well. Stefan Wayne is 298 back. Wolf Dietrich Hotho, Simon Thorms, Nicholas Graham amongst your top 10 in Legends Sport entering today. Now, Jake, let's talk about the teams, because so far, iRacing, they've been able to increase their advantage with their consistency on the road courses.
Yeah, 5,056 points. It's the lead of almost 500, which at this stage of the season might be insurmountable. Grizzly TFR Le Mans find themselves in second, and it is very spacious at this point. Apex Tech Racing Pro finding themselves in third. Then it's Grizzly TFR Daytona in fourth position. Team Mad find themselves in fifth, but they've got a race with Udox Oliver, which is basically Ross Banfield at this point, and this is where it starts to get close. RSR by Butt Kicker in seventh, Leo Racing Team in eighth, and then a good scrap going on, just 20 points, splitting the Sapphire Sim Sport team with NSH Racing Team.
Don't forget about the sports side as well, Jake.
No, absolutely. Bright Esports, they find themselves on top, but it has been Bright and NRG, as we saw in the sportsman standings. They gap just 67 points, and that has been the big key in terms of how they go about it. HW Racing a firm third at this point in time, ahead of the Hanson Brothers Racing. Grizzly TFR Spa find themselves fifth, with the Black Tree Race Crew in sixth, and this is where it starts to all close up. The Apex Racing Group in seventh, No Emissions Motorsport in eighth, and then you got Bright Esports by Glacial, and following that, the Racing Turtles, they find themselves in 10th.
That's looked at about your standings entering today. Let's take a look at your race details, Christian, as we get ready to go racing on the dirt.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting format here, obviously dirt racing, so heat racing. We have 16 cars, so that's going to work out to be 4 heats of 4 cars. So 10 lap heats, which will then everybody's going to transfer through to the 75-lap feature, but those heats are going to be very, very important, because you think, yeah, it's 4 heats with 4 cars each, but each position is actually worth quite a lot, because if you finish first in heat 1, you'll obviously start on the pole, but if you finish second, you're going to start back in 5th. So it's actually pretty important to try and win those heats, and with it only being a couple of cars in the heats, it's a good opportunity to actually make up for a mistake in qualifying. Obviously, qualifying track position is super important here on dirt. And we do have a little bit of a change from the international race. Caution laps are going to count, so we are only going to run 75 laps, whether that's under green or under yellow.
That's going to be important to think about for today for the 75-lap feature, absolutely. So we'll see how these drivers fare out as the night progresses tonight. 5 minutes to go in final practice. Joshua Wolf leads all drivers in final practice with a 15 flat, followed by Travis Henderson, Trevor Bobrovsky, David Milnerwich, and Cordell Cologne. And the main thing to emphasize, speed, speed, and more speed. For your top competitors, your top drivers separated by just 0.4 of a second, Jake.
Yeah, this is going to be where you split effectively good drivers from great drivers and great drivers otherwise. You look at one driver here, Tom Dryden down the bottom, who's 2 seconds adrift. It's only a 15-second lap for the quickest drivers. So to think about it as you're going around, you're 2 seconds a lap slower, around 3/8 of a mile. You go through a mile, you're going to be lapped in about 5 laps in sort of the way that it's going. So it is a very concerning way to go forward with the way it's driven. And you're just looking right now as they go forward, you can see that the drivers who are absolutely pushing it out there on track, who are showing exactly what they've got capable, they're seeing that front left tire just dip up off of the track as they go forward. So when they're going around, they're trying to get as much of that car leaning over to the right-hand side, and this is the perfect camera to really show it. They are having that front left tire just dip up off of the racing surface and then come back down when they need that grip extra once again.
That speed down the straightaway is going to be so critical as part of this wild card round, Christian. And how do you plan to attack this type of a racetrack in turn to make sure you get that speed Jake just emphasized?
Well, the 358 is all about keeping up momentum as much as possible, so we are going to reset the track back to a clean state for qualifying, and that's going to be a really big change from what they've got now, where it's, you know, it's very, very slick. You can see it's basically black slick around the entire track, so the pace is going to go up a lot, but it's going to be hard for everybody to kind of adjust to that. And obviously track position with dirt is very important. It's very hard to pass, and the races are, relatively speaking, very short. but there will be some opportunities to pass other cars, especially as the track begins to slick up. You're going to see everybody start to move gradually off the bottom of the track and towards the top. But once the top slicks off, there might be an opportunity on the backstretch to kind of cut it down and get onto the fresh, and it might be enough to get you to the inside of someone into 3 if you can hold it down there.
As these drivers continue to practice around, why don't we take a look at your track conditions, by the way. 77 degrees Fahrenheit is the air temp currently in session, 25 Celsius. That is 70 degrees for the track temperature, 21 Celsius. And not too much wind being a factor here. So with these cooler track conditions, see if these drivers are going to fare out well. The in-sim time is already approaching 5 p.m., so it might get cooler here as well as this evening progresses, Jake.
What I find really telling about how this track and weather conditions look is it's not often that you find the air temperature hotter than the track temperature as you go around. It is a devilishly cold track, which is going to be a blessing and a curse. It's going to mean that these drivers are going to be able to be running some quicker times because of the cooler conditions, but it's also going to mean that it's a lot easier to send the car in a bit too deep. You're really going to have to start fighting against the car a lot more and the thralls of oversteer. You'd much prefer in these dirt conditions to have a loose car over a tight car, and essentially at this point in time, as we can see, a little demonstration of how passing works here around Weedsport Speedway, which kind of looks to me like you're squashing a candy corn ever so slightly with the tighter nature of 3 and 4. This is going to be all about how you manage your way around the track like this, because it is going to be easy for this sort of racetrack to catch a couple people out, especially in colder conditions.
These two battle it around. Like to take the time to remind you that the Majors is sponsored by the Majors Garage, home of free Baseline Plus setups. Get help from any of the garage coaches 24/7. Sign up now for awesome, affordable monthly subscriptions, telemetry, coaching, and more at majorsgarage.com. Or use their special discount code MajorsGSRC for 10% off. We have a link in the description below that directly applies to our special offer. As we're down to the final 40 seconds in this warm-up session, Christian, your thoughts before we get rolling here for tonight's action?
It's really going to come down to trying to be the leader, which I know obviously sounds very, very obvious, but being able to control the restarts on dirt is a very, very powerful thing. So qualifying, very important. Getting that heat win is also extremely important, even though you're only up against a couple of cars. And I think that what we're going to see is that the guys who start at the front are probably going to stay at the front.
Just a few moments away from the end of this session. Again, Joshua Wolf leading all drivers in final practice. 16 entrants making their way to Weedsport Speedway as they get ready for 5 minutes of solo qualifying, 4 laps up on the board for these drivers to be able to set their fastest times around Weedsport Speedway. So now that's going to be the interesting thing with the track now getting reset to a clean state. How will these drivers fare out for qualifying to be able to get track position for their respective heats? We're about to find out.
We absolutely are, and it's going to be down to who wants to firstly, go out there first and take these conditions. I would try and get out there and put my laps in early, but you'd also want to maybe have a little bit of an eye on what you can do. 17 of Wayne Hutchinson is going to make his first run then here today. Club Northwest looking to try and get a good start going, and you can see his car definitely not as slidey as it is in the beginning. It is very planty. He's almost driving it like it's more conventional as he tries to put his first laps down on the board.
Once one of those, keep in mind, who are taking advantage of the wild card round festivities, where drivers may race in any or all of the races. From Dog Barrel Red, starting off with a 15.7 up on the board. His fastest times in practice were in the 16.3s on a more slicker racetrack. Brian Barnes to the top of the board for the time being. Second time around, still in the 15.7s.
Just breathe.
I think.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's interesting that he's kind of not right down by the wall in 3 and 4, and that's I think responsible for the gap in lap time that he's got here right now. You do want to kind of try and push that limit as much as possible, but you've also got to be careful that you don't kick the rear of the car out too much, because that's just a huge loss of momentum. And that's why the 358 is a bit different from the big block. Big block can run a bit tighter lines because it's got the power to make up for it, especially on a fresh track. The 358 is very much more about being very, very smooth on these fresh tracks to keep the momentum up.
Tom Dryden, meanwhile, hitting the wall coming up to the start of their first lap. Note Ryan Walker crashed on his initial run through qualifying, had to reset of their respective session. Dallas Pataska top of the board at the 15-4. Tom Dryden trying to utilize the top lines around this racetrack, nearly knocking the wall down with a 16-3 to start off the session for the 11 car.
16.3 is half a second off the pace of David H. Baker right now, and Tom Dryden has been struggling a little bit to get the performance that he wants, but as he pushes a little bit too hard, there's the wall, and this can be a really frustrating car to get to grips with. It's not as easy, I would say here, Justin, as put the throttle down and it's going to work for you. There is so much nuance in this machinery that it is a very, very tricky but rewarding car to drive out here on iRacing.
Take a look at Ryan Walker. Into the wall and upside down goes Walker for a second time in qualifying. Walker puts up a 15.7 as his official time, but only that one time that does count for the number 4 machine. Take a look now at one driver to watch for throughout today's festivities. This is Trevor Bobrovsky. Trevor Bobrovsky right now amongst your top drivers from practice, starting off with a 15.5 in qualifying.
You know, I was just taking a look at Pataska's lap that's currently good enough for pole. He was very, very close to the wall down in 1. He's just been deposed by Jeff Schmeier, actually, and I was going to mention that Pataska probably left some time on the table in 3 and 4. He was about half a car width away from the wall.
Up to the top of the board goes Joshua Wolf, however. Wolf with some of the most experience in the field when it comes to dirt racing. Races a fair bit on the platform on the dirt side. Official competition. Starting off in the 15.3s, that is a 10th quicker than the rest of the field.
It just gives you confidence. You look at who's around, it's going to be a little bit shaken up here today compared to the normal contenders out there, so you've got to make sure that you're finding points and you're finding pace. 15.5 on his 3rd lap. So he'll be looking for a little bit more as he takes a very shallow line, not even going up to the top of the wall, to the middle of the wall as he runs through into 3 and 4 and makes that rush over towards the line. A 3.80 is not going to be an improvement, but it is still some really good times. Robert Northway moving up then into 2nd position. He's also taking advantage of the fantastic wildcard rule as he comes in from the International Series to drive in for this.
Spinning around though on his 2nd qualifying lap, needs to find about 3/100ths of a second. He and Cordell Colon, the last qualifiers of the racetrack that can set official lap times up on the board.
He's got Colon 2 more in the back pocket here, and that is time.
That went very quickly, surprisingly as well. That quickly brings us into heat racing and how this now works with tonight's format. There are a grand total of 2 heats, 8 drivers per heat, set by the sim. Joshua Wolf will start on the pole for Heat 1, followed by Travis Henderson, Dallas Pataska, Trevor Bobrovsky, the top 4, Brian Barnes, David Baker, Sean Campbell, Wayne Hutchinson, the 8 drivers who will start in Heat 1. And that essentially means with this grouping, the top 4 advance directly to the feature. The rest have to go through the alphabet to set their starting positions. We'll see how things play out here, Christian. There was originally, keep in mind, 4 heats on the slate.
Yeah, a little bit of a change there. Obviously, we thought we were going to have 4 heats of 4 and everyone's going to advance via the heats. But now, I would say that the qualifying has actually become more important, even though we've already had it, just because it's now much more difficult if you had a bad qualifying to recover from it. And obviously Joshua Wolf in the best possible position, he just has to run 10 laps here out front, and he will start the feature on the pole.
Just waiting for one more driver to hit the starting grid before we get rolling for this one. With 16 drivers, there is no LCQ. It is worth noting for tonight's action, but we'll see how the sim fares out terms of that organization for how the card breaks down. this respective split. Jake, your thoughts on what we're about to see here? 10 laps up on the board.
Expect number 26 to be aggressive. You consider top 4 go through. You've got Dallas Pataska in here. You've got Sean Campbell in here. The 2 title challengers in the same heat. And you're back in 7th. You need to get up to 4th. He's got to make some moves. How he's going to make those moves, I find the most interesting.
2 teammates in control of the field when we get rolling here up at the front of the field. Grizzly TFR inside and outside to start things off. In fact, 3 of the top 4 Grizzly TFR drivers. One more pace lap before we get rolling here. Who can contend with Wolf is the huge question mark, Christian.
To be honest, I think that the closest is the driver in the second heat, Robert Northway. I'm actually really surprised that Sean Campbell was as far off as he is, because, you know, we kind of think that he's a very good all-rounder, the same as Pataska, and able to contend at the front. But I think he's got his work cut out for him today. So yeah, I'm really looking at Northway. I think he's going to be the one to take it to Joshua Wolf if anyone can.
Keep in mind, these drivers had to put in a minimum of 200 practice laps to be able to compete today. They're about to see how the practice is worked out. The green flag is out. We're underway for heat racing from Weed Sport. The inside goes Wolf to start things off. Up to the outside, Travis Henderson in the battle for second. Pataska shuffles his way to third. Vronsky shuffles his way into the battle with the 23 off through turns 3 and 4 to end off the first lap.
Very solid opening lap there. David H. Baker going back. A big send in on the transfer from Brian Barnes, who really wants to try and open up Trevor Vronsky, find a way through, open up that extra position. But everyone very resolute on that low line. That's where all the grip is. There's no point running high right now at the very beginning. And now you're going to have to get aggressive and find a way to make the moves through. And that's Barnes up into the wall, and Campbell now up into 5th. He's only got 1 place to go, and he's already done 2/3 of the job in 3 laps.
That's going to be the critical thing. Campbell needs to close up 1 second plus to have a shot at Vronsky for the final transfer spot out of this respective heat. And that's the tough thing for Campbell. You see the line much more shallower compared to some of his competitors in that top 4 currently, Christian.
Yeah, you just don't have a lot of laps to get it done in the heat, and obviously with it being a relatively fresh track at this point, there is no real line movement going on, so it's going to be really difficult for Campbell to make anything happen here. And the top 4 are kind of all a bit of a uniform distance apart. Nobody needs to make any moves. I don't think there's any chance of any real mistakes happening there. So looks like Campbell's going to be going through to not the last chance qualifier, but the Alphabet races.
Still trying to hold off Brian Barnes, though, for track position for those Alphabet races. Barnes getting pretty close to that 26. Coming down to the final few laps of this respective heat. Under 3 laps to go. Wolf leading by more than a second over Henderson, Pataska, Vronsky. As there is Joshua Wolf, who continues to make it look easy up at the head of the field.
So all he has to do, drive clean, drive away, and a 15.135, which is 2/10 quicker almost than his qualifying time, will indicate just how much help he's getting. As they kick up the track around a little bit, they can use that brim, get a little bit of extra help as they go around, and it is a showcase here as he's on the last lap.
Final time around, Joshua Wolf putting on a clinic in heat number 1. Wolf wins the first heat of the day in modified Mayhem. Travis Henderson second, Pataska, Vronsky, Campbell, and Barnes the top 6. Hutchinson and Baker round out the 8 drivers in heat number 1. You see the intervals amongst these drivers, separation 8 seconds between them in this first heat. That brings us into heat number 2 on the card. That brings up Robert Northway, who will lead things off for this respective heat. Jeff Schmeier will start on the outside, followed by Tom Drylight and David Milnerwich. Ross Banfield, Cordell Colon, Miguel Freitas, and Ryan Walker round out the entrants in this respective heat. Christian, your thoughts on what we've seen racing-wise to start things off and how things may progress in the second heat?
Well, I think it was fairly mild to start with. Obviously, with the fresh track, it sort of meant everybody was down there on the bottom. don't really think that we're going to see much movement around in the second heat as well. You know, there's just not enough cars out there and not enough laps to really make that happen. But I think the Alphabet mains are going to be really interesting because, okay, Campbell is starting on the pole for that, but he wasn't really in the clear at the end of that heat race. He had Brian Barnes all over him, and it's going to be those Alphabet races where the track does start to rough up quite a bit. And that might actually help with some experience as they go through into the main, because that's something we've seen before with dirt races, especially in the Majors series, that the drivers who come through the Alphabet races actually get a little bit of a leg up for the feature, because they get the experience of running on the kind of roughed up track that the guys who just immediately go through from their first heat, they don't experience because they had the fresh track.
Keep in mind, the sim hasn't indicated yet how they will handle that yet. With the starting order, keep that in mind. Originally, it showed 4 advance directly to the feature from the heats. We'll let you know once the sim updates that information. Green flag is out. We're underway once more. Northway with a good launch. The battle is on for third, however. Not a good launch for Smyer. Smyer shuffled all the way back to the 4th position.
And that was trouble off the start, but he's got the outside and he's using it well, but he's going to be fighting Milnarovic for position in the 69 as they go through. Schmeier having to use the high line, first person on it, and he's going to get some help up there, actually. Banfield's going to try and run it. Freitas and Cologne having a little think towards it. So some drivers trying to think about that high line, and Jeff Schmeier is in a little bit of trouble here. He's on the transfer bubble on the wrong side of the road. Ross Banfield's going to want to try and find a way through here on lap 3 as they fight behind. A little bit of contact between Cologne and Freitas.
Cleared on by Banfield with the slide up to 4th position. Next driver up on deck, Cordell Cologne, trying to find a way to get up to the 30 machine. Already on lap 4 of this respective heat. The gap about 5 car lengths between 5th and 6th.
Yeah, and everybody's still running on the bottom right now. We saw there what happens if he gets stuck on the top by Schmeier, but it was not really the top in 1 and 2 that was hurting him too much. It was when he was in 3 and 4, there's just nothing out there, and you really do need cars to kind of progressively move up the track, and we just haven't seen that yet.
Northway has progressed to stay at the bottom of the racetrack, up towards the top line, top driving, and that's the major thing in this. Tom Dreiling, we've seen struggle a bit in qualifying to start. He's holding on to the top 2 in this pack currently. What an improvement from Dreiling from practice.
It's not just on practice, it's been all season. He's been back marker fodder every time he's gone through, and I say that in the nicest possible sense. He's been doing incredibly well here today. I think he's found his discipline out there at the moment, and he's looking really good, but he goes around, and there's going to be a caution, and caution laps do count here in this one, so that's going to make it official, surely.
Tom Dreiling, in what was his best race of the season, heat, feature, or otherwise, goes near upside down, coming to 2 laps to go. Up at the flag stand, Robert Northway, your race leader, Milnerwich, Baker, Schmeier, now the top 4. Let's take a look at the GSRC replay machine.
Yeah, you can see he's just running a little bit high on the front stretch and then gets into the wall. Right front climbs up, and then he's just really a passenger at that point. And you know, really unfortunate, because as we were saying, it was his best race of the season up to that point. Feel like we cursed him a bit there. As soon as we started talking about it, he immediately ended up upside down.
He was last round's driver of the day with his historic mark at the time. Not the way Tom would have wanted that sequence to go, as expecting the checker flag this time around. Northway leading all the laps, putting up similar lap times, race pace-wise, compared to Joshua Wolf in this respective heat. So Robert Northway, once those taking advantage of the wild card format, able to come away with the Heat 2 victory over David Milnerwich. Ross Banfield, Jeff Schmeier, the top 4 coming across the stripe in those transfer positions per sim. Cologne, Freitas, Walker, Dreiling will round out the top 8 as they cross the stripe. So our second heat finishes under caution. You'll take a look at that race result once more up on the board. And here is what they have just done. As expected by some, they have elected to carry over all the heat running orders from the previous heats. The sim has just skipped the alphabet entirely and gone straight to warm-up, Christian.
Yep, another bit of a curveball for us there. We were expecting those alphabet races, but we didn't get them, and that really is a major disadvantage for drivers who kind of had bad heat races there. Obviously, the worst affected by far is Tom Dreiling. He went from lining up in a possible 4th spot to literally the tail end of the field in 16th. But we now have a couple of minutes of warm-up here before we run the 75-lap main, and I do believe that the track has been set to 35% state for the warm-up, and obviously the more cars that run on it here, the slicker it's going to get. But again, a little bit of a change for them, and they are going to get, even at the beginning of the main race, a slicker track than they've had in the heats.
On that note, let's take the time to give a shout out to today's charity in support for today's round. Take the opportunity to look at that now for today's action. Rise Above the Disorder. Major series, major supporter of all charities throughout their qualifying sessions. Again, today's charity in support, Rise Above the Disorder. Down to 3 minutes or so to go in this warm-up session. And this could be one of the quickest races of the season, we'll say, Jake. Still, though, if you want to compete for the championship, you need to be able to compete strongly, and Campbell has a lot you'd have to think on his mind. Campbell start off in 9th compared to Dallas Pataska's 5th in this respective feature.
Well, form is one thing, but this isn't about form. This is just about positioning, and to be positioned in the middle of the pack. When it came to practice, it looked very even. They were 10th and 11th, I believe it was, in practice. And now Sean Campbell finds himself 9th. Dallas Pataska was obviously hiding a little bit away in 5th place. This is probably the round where both of them feel like they're at their weakest. And it's going to be about who is the most weak through it. If Dallas Pataska can find something in this, and the likes of Joshua Wolf scraps out with the likes of Robert Northway when they're fighting for victories, you know, there's a championship to think about, and I think Dallas Pataska might be in a very strong position here today to go out and get a result. For other drivers out there, for Sean Campbell, I think he's got to try and target a top 5. That's the best I think he can probably hope for here today, is target a top 5. Anything above that's a bonus.
I will say for Joshua Wolf, though, today, it would be, I think, very fitting for him to win on the dirt, a track in which he's done well, in a type of race he's done well in the past. If you look to the inside of the right fender, he's got a special logo on that car today. 100 series races. That would be something I think Wolf would want to get, you'd have to think, with him hitting milestones.
I think everyone does want a victory at 100, but at the same time, you want a victory at race number 100. I think a lot of drivers would like 100 victories on top of that as well. So it's about, for Joshua Wolf, which has been a little bit more troublesome compared to a number of seasons he's had. It's sort of fallen into specialties for number 12. He's got to really find something today, because we know how good he is as a driver. He just has to go and unlock it, and I think today he's got the tools, but he's got a very quick Robert Northway, who has been fast all season long when it's come to international, Justin, as someone who has been in and around that top 5, race in and race out.
Should be a good scrap. It's worth noting Wolf is the modified builder for the Majors Garage. Respect to their setups. Again, the Majors Garage, special code Majors Gsrc for 10% off. Link in the description down below. Down to the final 30 seconds or so in this warm-up session. Final thoughts, Christian, before we go racing for the feature. 75 laps up on the board.
I think it's going to be very hard to beat Wolf. Obviously, there is the possibility of cautions and restarts, but that does advantage the leader more than anything. They get a kind of a bit of a free jump and a bit of an escape just off the start itself, and also they lose a couple of laps to be attacked. So I think it's going to be really, really difficult for Wolf to be beaten, actually. But I am keeping an eye on Northway. What I'm going to be looking for there is that he can actually get down off the start and hook in behind Wolf. Because if he gets stuck on the top, we've seen it's just really, really difficult for cars to not get trained.
As these drivers complete their session here, 16 drivers ready to rumble for 75 laps. for tonight's feature event. Let's take a look at how they'll start today. It's based on those heat finishing lineups. Joshua Wolf and Robert Northway on row 1. Row 2 is Travis Henderson and Dalvin Monerwich. Then it's Dallas Pataska and Ross Banfield in row 3. Trevor Bobrovsky and Jeff Schmeier, your top 4 rows. Sean Campbell starts in row 5 alongside Cordell Cologne, Jake. He rounds out your top 10.
Just outside of the top 10, Brian Barnes and Miguel Freitas find themselves 11th and 12th. Wayne Hutchinson is 13th, along with Ryan Walker. David H. Baker is 15th, and expect some movement from Tom Dreiling. He looked like he had a lot of pace, got himself the wrong side of the wall. That's what brought him back. But if he can jump inside the top 10, that'll be big for number 11.
That's a look top to bottom at the running order. 8 rows, 16 drivers, ready to rumble here at Weed Sports Speedway. The facility, 0.38 miles with the rounding. It's 3/8 mile facility. Starting off with a 35% track stake carrying over from the warm-up, remember. Warm-up did pick up a little bit more traction and a little bit more slick to keep up. Your keys to victory, Christian, if you want to win tonight's feature.
Really get out front, get ahead of the track. You've got to be kind of looking around to see when lines open up. And that's going to be key for anybody moving forwards as well. You know, they've got to watch to see if there's a point where kind of the preferred line goes away. Is there then an opportunity to move somewhere where there's some fresh, get a little bit more drive off a corner, and then kind of just force people offline on the entry to the next turn. But at the moment, it kind of looks like 3 and 4 is pretty much slick across the entire track. So if there's any movement, I expect it to be on exit of 2 with some moves on the inside of 3.
Joshua Wolf in control of the field to the inside. Then it's Robert Northway on the outside line. Just about all set to get underway for today's action. It's feature time from Weed Sport. Wolf catches everybody sleeping off and away. My goodness. How about a 7-car length advantage into turns 1 and 2? Henderson jumps up to second nearly. Northway keeps it side by side as they start a sliding battle in the midst of 3 and 4.
Travis Henderson getting that one underneath. He gets the position well, but Northway still trying that high line, and they continue to fight 2 wide through. Trevor Bobrovsky, for example, looking at Melnarovich and Dallas Pataska just behind. They're all trying to find positions early, and this is the key. Find positions early, settle into a groove and rhythm, and you can find yourself well in terms of this race. Henderson with the fastest lap as they now start to chase and look to try and really batter their way through. And there's a lot of battering at the back here. Justin Walker, Freitas, and Hutchinson all get into each other.
In the words of Miguel Freitas in the back of his car today, just gonna send it. He's been trying to send it. You see him in that battle into turn 1 right now. Side by side for 12th position, Ryan Walker. Trying to recover from several flips in qualifying. Able to get the run on the outside. 1 car in the wall. It's Pataska. Pataska hit the wall. Pataska has fallen behind Campbell on the racetrack.
Yeah, what happened there is it was actually Schmeier who hit the wall, came up the racetrack, and ended up right in front of Pataska. Pataska was already going backwards at that point, but Pataska had to check up a huge amount, ended up in the wall himself almost. And that's literally flipped it around entirely for him. He was looking like a good points gain on Campbell, and now Campbell's 2 cars ahead of him.
See how this plays out. 5th position, meanwhile, Ross Banfield inside, outside Mount Airwich. Cleared on by is Banfield. Now trying to close up a gap of nearly 1 second that's built up between them and the rest of the top 4.
That gap certainly is going to be very tough to bring back in this race. Ross Banfield knows, though, he's just got to dig. He's got to find these laps. They're already 8 laps green at this point in time. Melnarovich just behind in a good scrap right now with Jeff Schmeier. And you can see just how important these gaps are. You just got to keep building them and working them. Schmeier caught on that inside, can't do anything. And because of the different lines, a great exit for Sean Campbell. He's going to try and look to the outside, get right up to the brim, get some drive and find a way through. He's struggling to at the moment, but he's got no choice. The only way he's going to get around right now in the RSR by butt kick a car is by taking the road hard travel, which is the long way. Schmeier to the inside.
Schmeier trying to utilize all 3 tires currently on the dirt. Sliding his way around the inside. Monerwich forces the checkup from Campbell. Clearing on by is Schmeier. Schmeier up to 6th.
Yeah, really nice pass there by Schmeier. He made it happen on the bottom, and that's the trick. If you want that bottom line pass to work, you have to pretty much park the car, get in that little bit of fresh that's still remaining down there, and just be so patient in driving out the corner, because if you get too aggressive with the throttle pedal, you end up out in the slick, the car kicks sideways, and you lose all the run that you had, and you're potentially vulnerable to someone else kind of following on the top side. You see, Dreiling is around.
Tom Dreiling brings out the first caution of this feature as there he goes to the top. And Tom Dreiling will tow the race car. So down to 15 cars running. Under caution for the first time on lap 13.
Carbon copy incident of what happened in the heat to him. He just gets out wide, tries to get as much of the track as possible, and he's in the wall, gets up and over. You couldn't, he even landed in the same place here, Justin. You couldn't recreate it if you tried.
Nearly hit by second on back, however, that was a close call for the race leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if we hadn't seen that happen live, I would have thought that was a replay of the heat, because as Jake said, it was exactly the same, 100% identical incident.
That came just as traffic was about to come into play, mind you, and that would have made things really intriguing on how this would have played out. Instead, we get ready for the restart. Light still on top of the iRacing pace truck. 60 to go this upcoming time by. Joshua Wolf has been the king of the field, Jake. Been very impressive for Wolf.
It's been impressive so far, but there's a difference in terms of that impressiveness. He did most of the work to build the gap, and then it was a case of don't look back. Now the group's back together again. Someone like Travis Henderson, who is in part of the same team, you got to wonder if they're going to coordinate this start and make sure that Northway is going to be no factor in terms of the way that they're running. They're 1-2-4 at the moment, and I tell you what, this is their element. They want to prove that they're good on oval and dirt oval, do the Grizzly TFR team, and this is pretty much the perfect place to go and showcase their abilities as a team, as a strong team here when it has come to the European majors.
Just about all set to get back on our way. It's Wolf, Henderson, Northway, Bobrovsky, Banfield, Schmeier, Campbell, Monerwich, Barnes, and Pateska. Your top 10 on the racetrack. Green flag is out, back on our way. Good launch for the race leader, not as big as before with a teammate around. Bobrovsky trying to go around for third and does. Around Northway on the outside into 1 and 2.
God, you can't get much closer than this as they start to run through a couple drivers like Sean Campbell, for example, is thinking about the high side, trying to get some run, a little bit stymied there by the 5 of Ross Banfield, trying to open this up. Jeff Schmeier's gone pretty well off of this restart. He's got eyes on Bobrovsky as well as he tries to go through. Everywhere you look, top 4 pretty plain sailing, and now Schmeier, oh, there goes Schmeier, up onto the wall, and it's not going to bring a caution out. He saves it as they go through. It stays green.
Schmeier to the back of the field. I'm Dreiling behind him on the racetrack. We stay green indeed. Pateska, meanwhile, has recovered back to 7th, only 1 spot back of his championship rival in closing.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of ground to make up, and I don't think he's entirely clear from Melneritz here. And you know, that restart was interesting because there was definitely some team play going on up the front, but Bobrovsky kind of made a bit of a mistake with it. And now, actually, Robert Northway has got himself up in a second.
Northway, a part of Satellite Racing International Pro. He is the International Pro points leader with 4 victories entering this wild card round. Caution flag is out. It's Brian Barnes who brings it out this time in the number 15 machine. We're under caution.
Yeah, back end just steps out for him as he goes through, clips the inside, and it's a case of who left the barn door open. The answer's Brian Barnes, and that's why we get a second caution.
Now, one of the drivers coming over for the wild card round to this event today. You see the little bump to the inside, the hit to the outside of the car, and around goes Brian Barnes, one of the top drivers in Northwest Racing Series competition this year. And that's the interesting part when it comes to seeing Barnes in the field today. He's amongst one of those that you can put in towards that original category for the Major Series history where it has its roots in the Northwest community.
I think you absolutely can here, Justin. I think it's very, very important to know that this major series did start out in that Northwest. It does have its roots, it does have its heritage, and it is really cool to see that community grow and expand to become a global event. But you never forget where your history is, you never forget where you started, and it is that sort of where you started which keeps things humble. 1/3 of the race distance then is going to be score complete at the end of this next lap coming along. And I think the start has just been the key to winning this one. There's not much you can do. If you get that drive, you get the car pointed straight, I think you've got to be a little bit more alert to where the car is pointed straight over the course of a run like this today.
Worth noting, Brian Barnes, of course, the all-time starts leader in series history for the majors. Barnes back inside the top 15 for the restart. 14th scored in position, top driving 5 laps down, 15 on the lead lap. Wolf in Northway this time, side by side for the restart. Henderson, Bobrovsky, Banfield, and Campbell. Pataska, Monerwich, and they're making contact before they get to the starting zone. 2 times Wolf hit to the right side by Northway. Green flag is out, back underway. To the inside, Henderson to rip away the spot from Northway. And a slam back from Bobrovsky. 3 wide as they get slammed again by Ross Banfield. Campbell zips around the outside to try and get away from it.
I wonder, Christian, if that was a message from the team.
Yeah, it definitely looked like there was a lot of hip checking. Campbell has been hip checked himself by Northway. Campbell is upside down.
Caution flag is out, and the championship has taken an upside down turn. Campbell absolutely demolished.
He's going to try and get that background, but that's a pretty unique looking modified. I know we see him with the left front in the air a lot, but not often with the left rear in the air as well.
Well, I can already hear the notes being written from that one, but man, oh man, was that a crazy restart. Jake, nowhere for Campbell to go here on the exit Northway with the slam.
Yeah, Northway's on the radio. He's apologising for it because it's championship leader that has taken out championship leader. What a unique situation that is. As they go around, you can see he's on the outside. He's got nowhere to go. And I just think he didn't see him. That's just it. Just didn't leave enough for him. Just didn't see him.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think he knew he was there. And you know, honestly, Campbell was actually doing a really great job just running that line that nobody else was on. Everyone else was stacking up on the bottom. Campbell was going forwards, rolling the top by himself. And I just don't think that Northway knew he was there. And, you know, it's obviously pretty devastating for Campbell because there's no real way he's going to get the lap back. Yeah, and he still hasn't got the car fixed yet.
I think he's graphically got it fixed. It's the iRacing suspension on the car, Christian, that is broken. It will not fix entirely. His race is done.
Yeah, I think he's got one of those incidents where you actually have to fully remove the car from the world to fix it. So that's really unfortunate for Campbell. And, you know, that's one of those arguments against this wildcard format where drivers from other regions can come and race in your championship effectively because... you know, it was not saying that Northway was, you know, out there kind of just being reckless. He really wasn't, but it is a driver from another region that has taken out the championship leader.
So Dallas Pataska now in the driver's seat to retake the points lead if he keeps a clean green flag back underway. Wolf with a good launch. Henderson blocking Northway. Bobrovsky on the outside trying to make it work with the battle for third.
Some brilliant work off the restart again. The team wants 1, 2, 3. They'll do everything to get it right now, and it's Robert Northway against the machine at this point. Again, sticking on that low side, trying to keep that working. You got Banfield 5th, Dallas Pataska, by the way, up into 6th position now. And I tell you what, biggest mover in the field, Ryan Walker. Where's he come from in this race? He's up to 7th and trying to just claw position on position. He had an upside down run early, and they're all going to check up.
And it's Northway around to the heart of the pack. 4, 5, 6 cars collide in. The back of the pack crashes. Caution flag is out with 42 to go. Miguel Freitas, Cordo, Colon involved. Northway with the stop. Baker involved. Hutchinson, Bobrovsky, and several more stack up like Legos.
Oh, it just checks up. on Travis Henderson in second. He doesn't get the best run through one, and because of that, Northway's got to check up, and then suddenly dominoes, it goes over. In goes Pataska in the 23. He gets lucky. He's probably the luckiest of the lot because he flips him over and he gets away with it. 5 go in. Everybody chunks the track up. It's jammed as they go through it, but fortunately enough, both of the title contenders caught up, and crucially for International, Northway is in the pits.
See, right there, Northway, right in the middle of the racetrack, hit at least 2 or 3 times. Barnes and several more in the parking lot. That built up out of turn 2 is amongst that incident. So Northway, the only of the drivers to get the repairs done. You see Campbell still in the pit lane with the major tow. Campbell, we mentioned, expected to be done for the day. Northway has lost laps with this pit repair maneuver. 13 still in the lead lap. As we get back ready to go in the next few moments or so. Northway.
Lucky dog.
No, that wouldn't be the case. He was in the incident, right?
He came in, he took a stop, and he went a lap down.
I wouldn't have thought that he was able to get the lap back, though.
We'll
He's
see
got it
how...
back.
Well, the sim has given him a mulligan, apparently. The pace truck is off, green flag is out, and Modified Madness is taking a little bit of mayhem moments in. Near contact for the race lead. Henderson with a checkup nearly hits the wall. Banfield closes in for second.
God, it only gets tighter and tighter as they work. Ryan Walker in the middle of all of it. Cordell Cologne's made some good progress up. The middle of the pack starts to get quite dicey as they run through. 3 wide and someone way up into the wall. That's Cologne who's gone and tipped the wall through 1 and 2, trying to hold as much as he can on the outside.
Yeah, Jeff Schmeier down there on the bottom of the track. We saw him have an incident early on, but he's been able to recover through everybody else's incidents.
Fire trying to wrap the bottom. Remember who was stuck on the top for a majority of these restarts. Cordell Cologne out the outside, all the way to the cushion. Cologne tries to diamond it off the corner. Cologne with the pole, clears by Schmeier to hold on to 6th.
He's holding on quite nicely at this point, so this is still going to be one they have to fight. Leader clear, but everyone starts to fall back single file. Schmeier is the most important battle at this point in time, 6th and 7th, but it is all about that gap, and you've got the likes then of Ross Banfield, Dallas Pataska, who's there trying to figure out if he can maximize his points, or he would love 3rd place right now. It would give him a huge swing. In fact, it could be an identical swing the other way, and a great block pass from Jeff Schmeier. In the wall goes Cologne. Here comes Freitas.
Freitas just going to send it to the inside. Wade Hutchinson in the Dog Bear machine falls on behind in the battle now that's built up for the 7th position. Cologne all the way to the cushion, nearly to the exit of the racetrack to rip himself away on that top line as the bottom is starting to go away a bit.
Yeah, it looks like it's just getting more and more difficult to run the very bottom of the track, but one driver who is making it successful is Robert Northway. He's right down with that left front, just in that last bit of fresh, just trying to get the left rear to follow with it so there's some drive off, and he's slowly picking his way forwards after being honestly the luckiest guy out there on track in the incident, able to get his car fixed and still be on the lead lap.
Hearing from race control that he had been potentially at the pit exit before the pace truck, hence where that lap would have came in. 16 now up to the 8th position on the recovery drive so far. He started this restart in 14th position. Up the road in front of him, Ryan Walker, your biggest mover, still looking to make it to the top 5. Walker, not known for running on dirt. He hasn't run any races on the dirt officially in his career on the surface.
Well, he might have just decided he wants to pick up a new profession at this juncture, because he's doing a wonderful job of making this race work for him. Up into 6th position, he knows what he needs to do, and behind that, Cologne and Northway. You got Cologne taking the Uber high line, Northway on the Uber low line, and they meet at the junction.
Freitas around.
The one. Uh-oh.
Freitas spinning around and upside down. Caution is out. Barnes cutting the course. Several more spun around.
Campbell's back out.
Campbell came out moments ago. Yes, 11 laps down, but was just able to dodge this incident. And we're back under caution.
Yeah, it looks like it's just nowhere to go when they get there. Miguel Freitas finds himself in the wall on the outside. Doesn't have any help to get there, but everyone else, then the moment it checks up at 90 degrees, essentially you're driving into a brick wall, and that's what makes it difficult in terms of dealing with issues like that here at Weed Sport.
Taking our look, this is from Barnes, the Northwest region driver.
Yeah, and you can see there's no way that he knew that that was happening until he was there and in the incident, going behind the wall there at turn 1. I'm not sure if he'll pick up a cut track penalty for that.
He did come into the pit lane for damage repairs. This caution, here's another look.
Yeah, it's just as simple as that, really. You can't really argue too much more about it. Freitas just drives it in a bit too deep, and that's how quickly it can chunk up in dirt racing. So they've always got to be careful. You've always got to be alert to everyone that's around you, and that's why the opening couple of laps become really, really crucial in terms of a race like this. So keep that in mind as they go through. Trevor Vavrovsky is going to get himself to the back of the pack as we're looking like we're getting ready soon to get back to some green flag running again with 24 to go at the line.
Delayed green as there has been a driver who has had to stop on the racetrack as they have gotten themselves resituated. Freitas is still on the tow truck. 24 to go this upcoming time by. Wolf has led all 50 so far. Coming to the end of this lap, Christian, can anybody find a way around the 12?
I don't think so. Honestly, I think being the restart control car is giving him a pretty big advantage. Looking a little bit further back, though, I think this is an opportunity for Pataska to steal third place from Bamfield. And then further back from that, you've got Northway and Walker. Everybody who's kind of been moving forwards is on that top line, except for Schmeier. So it's going to be interesting to see out of that kind of group of 4 cars, the 23, the 4, the 30, and the 16, as to who's going to be able to make the best of this restart.
iRacing pace truck coming off the track. Green flag is out. Back underway. Great restart for the top 3. Pataska now trying to hold off 4th. Does hold off Schmeier. Oh. And more contact. Walker is around 4 cars upside down. Northway amongst them, having to immediately back out. The 17 of Wayne Hutchinson on his side. Cologne also involved. We're under caution.
It starts at Pataska, of all people. He almost gets into the back of one Mr. Ross Banfield, and at that point he starts to spread out. Everyone slightly checks up more, and then it's a chain reaction. Schmeier into Walker, and then suddenly, in the middle of the track, nowhere to go.
Take a look at Gsrc replay machine, and wow. Well, that was a brick wall.
Yep. And yeah, I would totally agree. It was entirely Pataska didn't get the greatest of restarts, then got almost in the back of the 5, and everybody had to check up behind. Everybody was trying to make their own moves, and 2 of those drivers that we were talking about looking like they were maybe going to move forwards, the 4 and the 16 of Northway and Walker, both to the back of the field, and I think Northway out of the race entirely. He has disconnected from the server.
Yeah.
Way is out, the international points leader. Barnes and Hutchinson on the toe. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, that's the gamble, though, that you take by taking the wild card, is that you decide to race in a series with drivers that you do not know how they are going to run with. You are gambling when you do that. It's great in many scenarios. For example, you can't make it at a certain time to a race, so you can jump onto a different race at a different point in time and say, hey, I can do this one. It's a lot better and easier for me. That's really great as a tool and a concept to use. But here, when you're up in the most volatile, I would say, format and scenario that's out there, I'm not sure that was the right decision from Robert Northway. I really don't think it was the right decision.
So with under 20 laps to go, pace truck with a major advantage over the rest of the field. Wolf in control of the field in of itself. For Travis Henderson, Dallas Pataska, Ross Banfield, Jeff Schmeier, David Baker, Bobrovsky, Monerwich, Cologne, and Walker all on the lead lap. Back underway. Wolf with another clean launch. Single file off to turn 1 for the top 2. Battle is on for 3rd. On back. Banfield inside, outside Pataska. Trying to use the cushion as Pataska to try and wrap it around the 5.
Yeah, much better restart from Pataska there, but the 5 is actually clear off of 4, and Pataska loses that opportunity to get third, gets to the back of the 5 himself. The 30's underneath him now. He's gone from the the attacker to the defense.
Pataska hit the llama. Now trying to get the pull on the outside again on the cushion. The battle with the dog bear machine. It's the battle of the animals coming into play.
Melnarovic nearly got turned just behind by Trevor Pavrovsky, so the two teammates very nearly jumping into each other. Olga, trying to go through is then going to be Schmeier. So Schmeier's going to try and do everything he can. Pataska is up there trying to search for what he's got. And then the battle behind Melnarovic, Pavrovsky, David H. Baker's in here, Ryan Walker, Cordell Cologne. Half the field's teammates with each other.
Especially for those remaining, absolutely. Bit of contact to the wall for Walker. One more hit behind them. Freitas getting into the side of one of the drivers. Baker able to hold on to it, though. Walker also able to avoid the wall. Battle is on between Freitas and Cologne. Also side by side. Bobrovsky and Monirwich for the battle for 6th position.
Yeah, further up ahead, Jeff Schmeier's looking really strong. He's to the outside, and we've got a car going around. It's Henderson. Henderson and Banfield are stopped.
Caution flag is out as the race leaders stack up on the bottom. The battle for 2nd. Henderson hit the inside wall on the entry into turn 1. Nowhere for Banfield to go as a stack up collects the driver who's been running in 2nd since the start of this race.
The issue with hitting the brakes as you go through, it doesn't stop you, it just points the car straight, so you're naturally going to angle to the outside, which is where the incident ends up going for Travis Henderson. So you can't win. If you're on the throttle, you're going to the middle. If you're on the brake, you're going to the middle. No matter what was going to happen there through turn 1, Ross Banfield there's going to the middle.
Banfield loses several spots in the process. Banfield has been drop-kicked back to 7th position. Result of that incident. It's worth noting that Campbell is about to pick up some of his spots back here, Jake, for the championship. Northway and Barnes have both not returned to the track. Northway, of course, done for the race. Barnes, a tow of more than 4 minutes, looking like he is done for the day. So Campbell, at the very least, can move back to 14th position. It's still not a good position compared to Dallas Pataska, who's in the top 4 and has the chance to rip away the points lead after today.
I'd take 14th over last, but at this point, Brian Barnes is going to cycle to the back of the pack, and that will put him on the same lap, believe it or not, as Sean Campbell out there on circuit. So it gets him back into play, it gets them back going. Sean Campbell's suddenly got a race.
Needs to fight for as many points as possible, right? Tom Drummond's the only other driver laps down in front of him on the racetrack. Everyone else is either a couple laps down or out of range at this point in time. Green flag is back out. Wolf continues to dominate. Henderson holds on to 2nd on the restart. Schmeier looking to rip around the outside of the battle for 2nd on the cushion.
Yeah, Schmeier's looked really, really strong on the top of the track. He's got that Pataska up there with him. The 69 and Malner, it's on the bottom underneath him, preventing him come down. Oh, Schmeier in defense.
Schmeier upside down on the front straightaway. Schmeier from the top 3 crashes. Caution flag is out with under 10 laps to go.
Oh, and just as they stop, Joshua Wolf gets plowed into by Travis Henderson. So as they hit the brakes, they've all had a miscommunication there as well. So a little shot to the back for Josh Wolf, but crucially for Schmeier, he goes up and over, and essentially they're running half a heat from now to the end.
Next caution flag could end the race as well. Let's take a look at the replay.
In the wall, we've seen it many times before, up into the catch fencing and flipped up and over, but the key here is watch what happens with Josh Wolf when they all start to slow it down, because they slow down, bang, into the back goes number 34, I believe Travis Henderson in the 1, so that's how quickly you can go from 0 to 0. There's the flip, and now this is going to be where the contact comes into play. On the brakes they go in, bang, into the back.
How big of a difference will that be, Christian?
I think it'd be fine, but obviously not what you want. It would have been much worse if Wolf had gone around, because if he'd have been spawned, then he would have been, you know, dropped to the tail end of the field because he would have been stationary.
No more positions Campbell can gain, by the way, as a result with this caution flag coming up to the restart. Will be about a 5-lap shootout to decide it. Wolf has dominated this race here in the Major Series in modified Mayhem. 1 to go signal given. 5 laps to decide it. Wolf, Henderson, Vibrovsky, Pataska, Banfield, Monerwich, Walker, Baker, Cologne. The 9 drivers on the lead lap with a chance to shuffle it out. Wayne Hutchinson has a chance to finish in the top 10 in the next moment or so, depending on how Schmeier's toe fares out. iRacing pace truck ready to dive on off Wolf, bringing the field to a slow crawl for the launch. Green flag is out. 5 laps to go.
Oh, Pataska got caught out massively, back to 5th and maybe 6th if Ryan Walker has his say on the inside. So troubles off the restart, but it is crucial. It's 1, 2, 3 for Grizzly TFR right now. Wolf, Henderson, Vibrovsky, they're in dreamland right now as they cross through. 4 laps to go.
Banfield and Pataska bumped into each other coming into turn 1. Pataska shuffled in the battle with Walker. Walker hits his teammate in Pataska. Pataska holds on to it. He saves it on the outside cushion. Now here comes the inside line. Grizzly TFR on the charge. 3 to go.
And the opportunity to gain a lot of points for Pataska is almost slipping away here. At one point he looked like he was on for a 3rd, and now he's back into 6th spot.
How times can change with 1 restart. Down to 2 laps to go. Next flag ends the race. Coming up to the battle to the inside, Cologne can't get the grip down as they take the white flag this time around. Joshua Wolf just a 3/8 of a mile away from victory. He started this race off as the top driver in practice. He started things off qualifying at the top of the board. He dominated his heat, and he'll dominate the feature. Modified Mayhem for the European Pro Split goes to Joshua Wolf at Weed Sport.
A 100 drive from Mr. 100 on his start. That is exactly what he wanted, and the team can be happy as well. Vibrovsky in 2nd, Henderson in 3rd. It's a 1, 2, 3. It's exactly what they asked for, and it's exactly what they needed to deliver. Fantastic racing here today.
Celebration already on for Joshua Wolf, Vibrovsky, and Henderson, your top 3. Vibrovsky had to claw his way up to the pack in this sequence. What a race. 16 starters. In the end, an eventful finish to modified Mayhem here today. Post-race coverage coming up in just a few moments. You're watching Gsrc for coverage of the Major Series in its European Pro Region Split.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ride around the world.
I'm Mick Claridge, and I'm going to ride around the world on my bike.
My son, he gave me advice at the start of this ride, and he looked at me and just said, "Dad, don't be a moron."
Let me do my animal signal to gain their respect. How's it going, Sally? Yeah, I'm alright, Mick. How's it going? Worse than that bit in Lord of the Rings where they go into the top and the spiders in the tunnel. I'm just hoping there's a spider at the top of this one to kill me. Freezing.
And I failed. I moroned up the ride.
Welcome back to tonight's coverage of the Major Series in its European Pro Region Split. After what was an eventful day for Modified Mayhem here at Weed Sport. Let's take a look at your unofficial race results tonight as Joshua Wolf takes the victory with 75 of 75 laps led. Vibrovsky, Henderson, the top 3. Banfield and Pataska, your top 5. Lone finishes in 6th, Monirwich in 7th, Baker in 8th, Walker shuffled back to the tail end of the lead lap in 9th position at the checker flag. Wayne Hutchinson does get the top 10 to round out that grouping, Jake.
Yeah, it certainly does. These drivers then further back multiple laps down and found themselves in trouble. Miguel Freitas found himself on his side today. Jeff Schmeier was upside down at one point. Tom Dreiling looked for a moment like he was going to have a fantastic run of things today, but the mistakes crept in, and that's why he's 13th. Sean Campbell, that's a big one, finding himself down in 14th. Those are major points that he's dropped, with Brian Barnes 15th and Robert Northway. The gamble does not pay off for your international championship leader. A dead last 16th, and he would be hoping that he gets a better points haul when he returns back to Australasian coverage.
That's all talked about in Matt tonight's running order here in this one. Joshua Wolf taking the victory here today. Let's take a visit to Victory Lane with Joshua Wolf. Josh, domination station today. How's it feel to win on the dirt?
Great. I've been looking forward to this race. Had it circled on the calendar all year and couldn't wait to get here.
How would you describe the race in of itself for yourself? It seemed like you had the pace by 1/10 of a second a lap throughout the entire day today.
Yeah, there's definitely some guys I was concerned with. Robert, I raced in the international race and he was up front, so I was concerned there. But had great teammates right behind me that just kept them back far enough to allow me to kind of run away.
Well, today also a strong performance for the team in of itself. How would you describe the work effort put in by Grizzly TFR for the dirt race today?
We put in a lot of effort. I built the setups for Major's Garage, so we had great setup to start with, and I just worked with everybody on the team, trying to get it fine-tuned for them specifically, and it helped them be able to keep up and be pretty close to the pace that I had.
Anyone you want to thank for the run today?
Thank our sponsors. I got Major's Garage, TFR Labs, Envision. I also want to shout out, if you saw on our paint or some of our paints, to Tom Dreiling. He had his 100th race start in the majors last round, and with us not being able to run custom paints, we weren't able to kind of celebrate that, so we all put that on our cars for this round.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for the time, Josh.
Yep, thank you.
That's Joshua Wolf coming away with the victory today. Trevor Borowski coming away with second spot. He's with Jake.
Trevor, it was a lot more of a difficult challenge for you up in and around that front, because every time Josh got the restart, he was off like a rocket, and you were left to have to fend off everybody else behind. It looked like King of the Hill sort of things.
Yeah, I mean, we knew going in as a team that Josh definitely had the strongest of our cars, and we were just hoping that we could kind of be the best of everybody else. Myself and Travis. Travis started up front like that, and I had to kind of come through. Didn't have the strongest qualifying, but knew I wanted to try and get up to the front to try and fight for kind of the best of the rest. So wasn't the smoothest of runs, but ended up getting there in the end.
Well, they don't ask you how, they ask you how many, and you got there to P2. Talk about those final laps, because it looked like it was going to be guaranteed. Grizzly TFR 1, 2, 3, which is exactly what you were looking for, but it wasn't quite a guarantee whether it was going to be you or Travis who was going to be taking second place come the end.
Yeah, Travis, I think when the track started to get more and more slicked off, I think he started to struggle a little bit more and more. He was stronger, I think, the earlier points of the race, just compared to where he was at the end. And no, we had a good clean fight. There were no team orders going on or anything like that either. So it was just trying to keep it clean. Definitely didn't want to do anything to try and jeopardize, the finishing order where it was. But no, it was a good, clean, fair fight. I was upside down on lap 33, so just to be in the spot to battle for second place was pretty nice.
So some great battling that you've had. Silverado 250 next time up, September 11th at Motorsport. How are you feeling about that one moving in? Because it looks like it's going to be the perfect mix, really. You've got yourself a car that is out there driving with some battling, and you've got yourself everything more that you could ask for in terms of a track combination. It's the perfect marriage of road and oval.
Oh yeah, I'm super excited. This was the race that Josh had circled on his calendar at the start of the year. Motorsport is the one that I did. I love NASCAR on road courses. Some of the most fun that I have. A few years ago, was able to pick up a second place at Watkins Glen in the Cup car, although everyone got put a lap down by Blake Reynolds. But yeah, no, definitely one I'm looking forward to. Hopefully, going to try and be the best of the rest behind Dallas, because something tells me he's going to be pretty impossible to beat there.
Well, we're going to be seeing how it all plays out for you. Anyone you'd like to give a shout out to here, Trevor, after what was a very, very hectic P2 for you?
I mean, Josh already shouted out all the team sponsors and whatnot, but just a huge shout out to him. Really putting in a ton of laps, ton of work, building the setups for us and working with us as well. I don't think without having him, just not even for the setups, but just kind of showing us the ropes, could have been a lot different race for the team today. So huge shout out to Josh.
No worries at all there. Trevor Vorosky, P2 overall. He took everything that was given to him, and he really had to work for that one, Justin.
Indeed he did in this one. Indeed he did in this one. Christian, I want to turn to you. Your thoughts on how things played out here today.
Well, I think some of the surprise was how much the two main championship contenders struggled. Obviously, Campbell didn't qualify well, then raced his way forwards and was actually looking pretty good race pace-wise until he ended up on his lid. No fault of his own there, really. And then Pataska kind of had opportunities to finish higher up in the field, and just looked like a lot went against him. But really, it was a TFR domination at the front, with the exception of the interloper and Robert Northway, who contended for a little while there.
Your thoughts, Jake?
This is dirt racing. It's always going to be difficult. It's always going to be different. Not everyone's going to understand what it takes to be quick here, but there was a group of people who did, and I think it was very telling today who had the pace and who didn't, and you always had to be careful when it came to this round. And I think there's a certain championship leader who doesn't have his championship lead anymore. He'll be looking at this one today going, that wasn't quite what I had in mind.
That's an understatement, to say the very least, in the case of Sean Campbell. With that, we'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's race from Wheat Sport. We'd also like to thank the companies who provide their software and hardware for broadcast listed up on screen. Additional thanks go to Jude Lawn, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more for great work. Thanks to the team today in Jake, Christian, Zach, and Dougie. You can find out more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed on screen. Also, please sure to check out the merchandise store at gsrc.storeandbuy.com, keeping the link in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. As mentioned, the next race is the Silverado 250, the weekend of September the 11th at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. Coverage once again will be starting at approximately 11:45 a.m. Eastern Time. But later on tonight, it's the Major Series Americas region, which will be racing with the modified starting at 7:55-ish p.m. Eastern Time here on GSRC. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.